Sup YouTube, I am Major64, and recently, I've been thinking a strange thought. So, you know there's a difficulty progression, or at least it's supposed to exist, between each boss in New Lumos? My thought was to shatter that difficulty progression entirely, and just make all of the bosses in New Lumos as hard as the Dark Sun, but still making a balance between them. So basically, making the world disgustingly hard like the Dark Sun. On that note, I just want to address it before you guys might accidentally poison me. If you, for some reason, decide to mod that into reality, please inform me first, so that I'll be prepared to fight those monsters mentally. So be sure to hit like and subscribe, as well as share this video or channel to those you love. And with that being said, let's go! To clarify, I'm going to go through each of the buff bosses in order, from the simplest to the complicated ones. Starting with the simplest and most intimidating to explain, the Dark Sun. When I meant intimidating, I meant that the chunky star itself also gets buffed, but only slightly. But first, let's talk about stat changes. In terms of stat changes, there isn't much going in its favor. It gets 5 points in defense, sure, but it loses 20 points in speed from its respectable 105 to a very slow 85, meaning it's slower than most of the bosses now. The rest of its stats stay the same, however. The only moveset buff it gets is that it starts its second phase earlier, by 2% of its max HP, which is about 240 damage, so just one extra hit. The reason for that buff is so that it'll be harder to predict when that second phase will begin, and seeing as said second phase starts with a big bang, it can really mess players up. The only other things that are harder in this fight are major stat buffs to the metal, not the sun itself. Fun fact, did you know that the Dark Sun's medals are actually the fastest enemies across all bosses in New Lumos, with an impressive 120 speed stat? Well, with these buffs, the medals do get a speed boost, so while they're faster, they're not the fastest. That is because there's a boss that is actually faster than them now, and that boss is the Dragon Lord. Surprising how the medal's new incredible 150 speed stat is still way slower than this boss. Originally having a low speed stat of 60, this beast of a lizard got 100 points in speed, giving it an insane 160 speed stat. That's not even the scariest part. Sure, 25 points in magic are sweet addition, but its severe drop in defense is there for a good reason. This thing's attack stat shot from a mediocre 100 to an astronomical 400. That means it got 300 extra points in attack. So this new reptile is good for one thing: damage output. Listen, the way I made moves here is that they have a base power, the minimum amount of damage a move can deal or heal, and a damage multiplier, to multiply the attack or magic stat used to calculate the dealt damage or HP yield. So even a terrible 75 magic suddenly becomes terrifying when used with a 3 magic multiplier. What this means is that the Dragon Lord is now a crushing force. A force to be reckoned with. A mixed attacker who usually hits an entire party for truly jaw-dropping numbers. Furthermore, it gets a passive called Moxie. This passive provides a permanent 20 attack buff and 20 magic buff every time a meat dies. Good lord, that's what I call nightmare fuel! However, this boss is still as frail as it is strong, so I see the Dragon Lord being very weak against its own medicine. I'm talking about hyper offense, especially of the physical variety. Meanwhile, bulkier and less destructive squads are probably always obliterated by this force of a lizard, and I mean obliterated. So just kill it quickly, as quick as humanly possible. I've made a monster. Following the Dragon Lord is another crusher with great power, In this case, literally after the Dragon Lord, the King of Hounds. This bad doggo keeps its title of an RPG classification as close as it would keep your bones. A versatile physical tank, the archetype, not the job, with easy access to status. This boss saw itself getting nice stat buffs. It's still slow and has a low magic stat, but on the physical side of stats, it's tremendous. Imagine the Dark Sun's attack and defense stats, except it traded 20 points from its attack to its defense. What's more, the need to balance out with the Dark Sun effectively doubled the King of Hounds' HP stat, so it can now put its new HP stat of 10,000 to good use. And it got a really good passive for even more tanking. Silent Strike. What this passive does is that it prevents the King of Hounds from waking up Miis who are asleep by simply hitting them. This makes for a more intense need for the safe spot, as it would be impossible to win without it, since it doesn't wake you up when hitting you and would still have insanely easy access to Nightmare to make good use of its passive, and would probably be able to torment several teams to no tomorrow. The strategy for this one is probably Mage Spam. Magic attacks would be good against this boss for having a low magic stat. Burial would cripple the doge severely, and mages could actually use Silent Strike, the King of Hounds' passive, against it, basing Sleep Tight themselves, this way guaranteeing max HP recovery. So, in short, beat it with magical offense. Continuing with with bosses who are bulky, we have the Frog King and Queen. Ah yes, I too remember when they weren't bulky, because now they are still frail on one side of the attacking spectrum. But on the other side, they are disgustingly bulky. One with 360 defense and the other with 360 magic. And don't worry, they don't use that magic for attacking. In addition to both Fatos landing and getting land a hand, and almost guaranteed land a hand, to really mess you up in spite of their low attack stats of 155. Messing up attempts for shields incredibly well, as well. Their whole shtick is that they act together, damaging multiple Miis at once and easily messing with shields, most prevalent when both use Bad Breath at the same time. The way to defeat them would be mixed offense, since one has a terrible magic stat and the other has a terrible defense stat. Simple but pretty volatile. A definite improvement over the norm. But the other four bosses, they're pretty complicated, to say the least. So let's start with the first of these bosses, King Cow. When I said first, I meant literally the first. And seeing as the physical attacker's role were taken, and that's the role this boss could work so well as, I gave it another role, a status inflictor. All I did was giving King Cow the special attacks of all Ghost Mana. But that goes a long way. So, King Cow got access to two status conditions, Cry and Fear, through attack's secondary effect, meaning they bypass block percent, and an excellent and assisting passive, which was called Predator of Weakness, a passive that doubles King Cow's damage output when hitting a Mii who suffers from a status condition. Any status condition! This specific passive is actually insane, due to Hyper being a status, thus also activating the passive, doubling the damage output of this cow to monstrous levels, and effectively evaporating the Hyper sprinkles physically offensive teams tend to rely on. And this is honestly very, very colossal, especially with Earthquake's all damaging properties. Now, let's move on from the first boss to the last one! The Evil Sage. Honestly, the Evil Sage stage mostly the same in terms of archetype. A magic attacker with dangerously high damage output, only with one major difference, aside from stat buffs all around except for attack. A new skill called Incinerate. This bastard of a skill only does one thing: break shields and barriers. and with other new toys like a lightning bolt and access to the pretty scary burn status, and this firebender ain't something you wanna mess with. This boss now becomes a terrific magic attacker, scarier than before, especially with its shiny new 283 magic stat. But, like the Dragon Lord, its defense stat is now abysmal, rocking diving all the way from a good 120 to a horrible 75. Overwhelm it with bulky hyper offense, cautious warriors, and you got yourself an easier win. Yet, not an easy win. I think we expressed magic very well with these buffs to the evil stage. But how about a magical duo this time? Yes, I did run out of transitions. The Dark King and Queen. This one is complex for a good reason. The matter of choice. You see, the Dark King actually becomes a gentleman with this buff by getting an assist. No, not laying the hand like his muddy buddy, but rather the assist sacrifice. The reason this sacrifice is different than cover and assist related used by the Dark Sun medal is that sacrifice works on all attacks, including non-contact attacks and magic attacks. Meanwhile, the Queen continues being an annoying magic attacker, but now packing the passive curse. Vampire's Curse! You know, the broken recoil damage as well as dodge percent from a void! So you're left with a choice. Either you kill the king first and face with the queen for longer, or you kill the queen first. But then, you have to face the man's other attributes, as the king also packs a guaranteed avenge with him. And that actually means he will move twice per turn from then on. So, it's a pure strategy thingy, and it's up to you! The weakness of these two together would be multi-targeting attacks, simply because they can exploit one's bad magic stat and the other's bad defense stat, as well as the fact that most multi-targeting physical attacks are non-contact, thus ignoring both dodge percent and curse recoil. As such, yeah, you kill the queen first, sure, but the king then won't be a problem to finish off, seeing as there's only a 2000 HP difference between the two. So, there would still be a clear strategy to beat them. And finally, moving on to the most complex of the 8 bosses, the Calc King. In my eyes, you probably think, how? All it does is summon ultimate robot warriors and attack with magic offense. And to that I'd say, don't you see it? This is probably one of the more unique bosses in Lumos. And I'd also say, yeah, now it heals. This boss literally gets the cleric's Gigapantasy, letting it heal itself and the ultimate robot warriors all at once, alongside stat buffs that give it a great magic stats of 226, a good defense stat of 148, and a devastatingly high stat of HP of 13,000. God, that's more than the Dark Sun! Alongside block percent with safety mask, since the ultimate robot warriors will now count as normal enemies instead of boss monsters, and you got yourself a thing I'll just call Laser Mayhem. A strategy I would think of is to still inflict the dance status on the bot, and then attack the king and only the king. Since the boss itself won't put up much of a fight when it got minions lying around, and even with safety mask block percent, it only would activate on one entity at a time, letting you cheese through the rest of the fight with ease. Best of luck out there, mates! And that's it. Comment down below on what you think about these bosses. Do they seem too broken or just slightly intimidating? Also, I made a Word document about all these buffs that you can check out in the description if you want to look through even more details. And well, that's it!